All right, this is day 6, building an 8-figure coaching company in public. Pretty much sharing everything that I have or know or I'm thinking about day by day, partly as a document for myself, and then also just to document this journey and hopefully provide value as well. So I'm going to do something a little bit different and just share kind of 3 main things that are a little more principle-based or mindset-based that have really been kind of fundamental on my mind. I just think, I think at the end of the day, most of the success that you have comes down from a lot of these kind of harder, higher order decisions. So when you're dealing with a lot of the human stuff, the tactics and stuff is easy. Most people can figure it out. I think it's some of this stuff that's both mental and mindset stuff and other things that get in the way. And at least in my experience, what I found is, this is probably one of the few times, the few little things that I've done in my journey in life, career, or whatever you want to call it, vocational stuff, has usually been pretty easy and pretty successful in a pretty short amount of time. And I would say this journey right now has been a journey of there's a lot of things that I don't know and a lot of ways in which I'm being challenged. And I enjoy that. I like that a lot. And I'm learning quite a bit about myself. And, it's just very interesting how human so much of this stuff is, and I'd say how common so many of the patterns are. So anyway, without any more of that prologue, I'll talk about a couple main things that are on my mind. So one podcast I listen to a lot is the Founders Podcast. I also like to listen to podcasts like Acquired, and I listen to Hormozi. I listen to a lot of other people, and I just try to pay attention to the patterns that I hear from the most successful founders, entrepreneurs, CEOs. And there's tons of patterns and principles that people have documented over time, but these are some of the most important ones that have just been on my mind. One of them is, with the business, just simplifying things. So as few different steps as you can possibly have, simplifying them, and then just mastering those steps. And it's a pursuit of saying no to everything else, being obsessive, and just putting all your will into energy into fixing those small steps. And that level of execution, both in the ability to say no and be decisive, and in the obsessiveness to get the details right, and that attention to detail, I just see this over and over again with so many different founders in their own different way, just literally obsession about this. And I think that's what it takes to really build a great product and build all these different steps. It takes that level of obsession. But you can only get it with simplification. I put, this is one of the most recent Founders Podcast episodes about a sushi maker. He's been doing this stuff for 7 years. And, does crazy things, has his own personal rice dealer and, massages the octopi that he feeds people for 45 minutes. And very crazy extremes, but has 3 Michelin stars. And I just have a lot of respect for that. Then, of course, there's just the power of saying no to things, the power of being decisive, understanding that when you say no, you make people mad, understanding when you say no, it's very, very hard, but it's the foundation of focus. I put a little clip here about it, but there's so many different examples. That's something I've heard on some of the Hormozi stuff recently too, just the power of saying no to things that you really, really want to say yes to. And I know I have so much more to learn on this, but I'm really trying to incorporate and master this lesson more and more. The other one is about fear. I think many founders and entrepreneurs and stuff, there's kind of less of this thing of fear, but I don't know. I think fear is pretty surreptitious, and it shows up in ways that you don't expect, and it can warp the possibilities that you see in your life without you even really knowing about it. And that's just been a big theme for myself. Understanding that, a lot of times I think it's fear and sadness and avoiding those two things that create a lot of human suffering. And so that's one. The other one is working with the best people, the greatest people. One of my mentors, who I've mentioned here on this channel before, she was talking about how she was managing a launch for somebody else well known in the space, and she realized as she was managing other people's people, she was she's I'm not even really a good manager, and she's never really had to manage people because she just worked with the best people. And when you work with great people, you just tell them you're still management, I'm sure, but you just tell them there's just a kind of a will and a beingness that they just go and get things done. And you can just say, hey, this is what I want to get done, and things get done. They follow through on what they say, and just the delta between a C player, a B player, and an A player is so huge. in the impact that it has. So paying people, compensating people, getting the right people. It could be ego thing that blocks it. It could be a scarcity thing around fear of money, and it could be, I don't know, there's so many different things that it could be. So I think really just having a commitment to only working with the best people is huge. Another little interesting anecdote that I heard was, this was about randomly saw some video of Iman Gadzhi's, somebody on his sales team, and there's a bunch of different things on it, and there's different opinions about Iman Gadzhi, but he's successful in his own right, obviously. And one of the things they said was they were even if the people on his sales team, even if they were making $0, they would have still followed him, just because it was there was a culture in a family, right? The culture was this culture of self-improvement. People just wanted to be there and wanted to improve. And the main thing he said that stuck with me was, he was the power came from the leadership of Iman, which came from self-leadership, which I think is a very interesting thing. That self-leadership, being able to hold yourself accountable, is the prerequisite for holding other people accountable. And holding people accountable, if there's a question, what are you tolerating, is the prerequisite for building a great culture, right? So it comes to working with the best people and this level of self-leadership and accountability, which is something that I'm also paying a lot of attention to. Another principle is just quantity has quality all of its own. I love quality and doing things correctly, and realizing that quantity and just the reps is one of the fastest and best ways to get there. The other one is just conviction and decisions. I already talked about know and simplify and making decisions, but there's also a level of conviction, I think, especially in coaching, that the value of the coaching comes from figuring out and not making decisions for other people, but kind of finding optimal decisions and recommending them strongly, and having conviction in what you say and in what you sell. And that's so huge. And I think if you have a fear of kind of getting it wrong or not wanting to make those decisions, that's going to bleed through. And I'm talking about that for myself. Not wanting to lead people astray or not have enough conviction in it, but there's a certain point where it's people want things to be simple, and they want to be told what path to follow to a degree. And so having that conviction is really, really powerful. Then there's this other interesting one, which I heard in another podcast, about how restaurants and softwares are two things that they couldn't be farther away from each other in terms of the actual model and the way they operate, and that they both come to the same conclusion, which is at the end of the day, it's product that wins. And brand is really just a reputation. Brand can be many things, but it's often the reputation of the product. And so product wins at the end of the day. And I thought that was interesting. This is something I heard on a podcast from Hormozi that I thought was really powerful, which is just patterns of what he called the 7 deadly growth sins, and I'll just list them out. I thought these were really precise, and they play into a lot of the principles that are over here. So avatar selection, being stuck between serving 2 different client types, needing both to pay the bills, but needing to focus on one to scale. The dilemma is picking one means losing money, but not picking means the business never grows. Hard decision. Data, needing to make a big decision that requires data to inform it, but lacking the resources to collect it. So you're stuck between making an uninformed decision or remain paralyzed. Focus, again, huge. Overexpansion and being under-talented. I guess that popped up twice for some reason. Gotta fix that. Oh, let me fix that. Yeah, overexpansion, under-talented, expanding locations of product lines without expanding the team accordingly. Compensation, undercompensating or overcompensating, underpriced, charging too little for services, and having a single product when the bottleneck is LTV. So what are some of the ways that we're fixing this? For the avatar selection, this has been kind of an issue where we have business owners and freelancers and trying to dial in. I think we're very clear now, the path and the kind of people we want to work with, starting especially with freelancers, et cetera. Data is a thing, is not a massive bottleneck right now. Focus has definitely been huge, so stripping everything down, restructuring things. One of the things that we may end up trying is, for the coaching program, is doing a cohort, so monthly cohorts that are just on a rolling basis. So yes, we have sort of the menu of options and support and office hours for people, but really just focusing on 30-day cohorts, like really intense, and kind of push people through these stages every month, and they can do as many as they want. And so that's the focus there. I think these also matter, but less so. I think this is very important and something that we'll have to hit, and pretty clear about this other sort of automatic like email writer that we've been building, it pretty much covers this single product thing. So those are some of the things that are on my mind. Actually, I'll read this last one, which very out of left field. It comes from 2 different mindset books that I like. One is Reality Transurfing in 72 Days. Another one is Book of Light, which somebody gave me. Very, very different and not very woo-woo, both of them. But basically what I do is I just think of a number, and whatever number that is, I just read that chapter for that day. I read them from both books when I feel like it. And both of them kind of had the same concept, which is knowing the self. You're a truly unique individual. Your uniqueness is beyond competition. Claim the right to your originality. Another one here is the truth is that none of you knows what your mission is, not even you. Your mission on earth is something so intrinsic, so deep within, it could never begin on the outside. So trying to discover, it says it can never start in your head or your mind. It has to begin in your heart, trying to discover who you are, trying to change that, and trying to ascend. Again, very, very woo-woo, but I think this is a really deep principle, is about really knowing what it is that you want. If we talk about over here simplifying things and making decisions, I think the most important decision is understand what it is that you want for your life and what it is you're committed to creating. And some of that is stuff that you are creating, like it's self-created and self-designed. And a lot of that is something that is so deep and intrinsic. And connecting with that, I think, is the prerequisite for everything.